جهنم كانت مرصادا للطاغين مآبا فيها لا يذوقون ولا شراب وغساق إن يرجون أبوا بآب وكل كتاب فلن عذابا من حمده الله أكبر. الحمد لله الرحمن يوم الدين إياك نستعين صراط المستقيم أنعمت عليهم المغضوب عليهم للمتقين وكواعب أترابا وكأسا دهاقا لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا جزاء من ربك عطاء حسابا رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما الرحمن لا يملكون منه خطابا يوم يقوم الروح والملائكة صفا صفا لا يتكلمون إلا من أذن له الرحمن ورضي له قولا يوم يقوم الروح والملائكة صفا لا يتكلمون إلا من أذن له الرحمن وقال صوابا ذلك اليوم الحق فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه مآبا إنا أنذرناكم عذابا قريبا يوم ينظر المرء ما قدمت يداه ويقول الكافر الكافر يا ليتني كنت ترابا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله استغفر الله استغفر الله. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام، تباركت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. لا إله إلا الله ولا نعبد إلا إياه، ولا نعمة ولا فضل ولا ثناء ولا حسن. لا إله إلا الله مخلصين والدين ولو كره. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, right after Sunnah, we have a session until 8:30. The title is the Etiquettes and Manners with Quran. And we will be looking at how our pious predecessors, how was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to deal with the Quran, and what type of etiquettes and manners that we need to have with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the words of Allah. So inshallah, stay with us right after Sunnah. Jazakumullah khair. And for those who would like to do the Sunnah, please go to the right hand side, because we want to have the partition inshallah right now. Barakallah fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, let's get started in 1 minute. So be ready, inshallah. Barakallah fikum. And for the sisters, inshallah, we did place the partition. So those who would like to join us here, inshallah, in the main musalla, please feel free to come now. Yalla. طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم يا ربنا اجعل اجتماعنا هذا اجتماعا مرحوما واجعل تفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما. اللهم لا تجعل فينا ولا بيننا ولا منا شقيا ولا محروما برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described the believers when they hear the Quran, what happens to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, مَثَانِيَ تَقْشَعِرُ مِنْهُ جُلُودُ الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُم. That the Quran, when it is recited to the believers, their skin would shiver, and their tears, their eyes will be full of tears. Now, this actually description to many people has been misunderstood, misinterpreted. The problem is that people think that it is just a matter of crying or a matter of skin getting shivered. The matter is way different than just that physical thing. It actually, I mean, why would they cry? They would cry because of so many different things. It's not because of their sins, by the way. It's because they are reciting the words of their Lord, subhanahu wa ta'ala. When they imagine that those are the words that are coming from the one who created heavens and earth, whose kursi is bigger than the whole heavens and earth. And that kursi is nothing but like a ring in a huge desert compared to his throne, al-arsh. And then the arsh is just one creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So who is Allah? You just cannot imagine. So when you hear the words of Allah, that's what makes their skin shiver. It's not, that's what makes them cry. It's not really because, oh, I did this, the major sin and whatnot, and now I'm crying. It's not about the beautiful voice of the reciter that makes people just to cry like how we have it in Ramadan, in Taraweeh. Unfortunately, brothers and sisters, in many situations these days, the reaction that we have to Quran is very superficial. Very superficial. It's nothing related to how it was in the time of Rasulullah ﷺ, with the Sahaba and with our pious predecessors. And subhanAllah, Aisha radiallahu anha, Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu wa ardah was asked about him sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he mentioned that the Quran was so attached to him. Aisha radiallahu anha said that he sallallahu his khuluq, his characters and manners were the Quran. So if you want to know how he sallallahu behaved, just look at Quran and see what the Quran says, and that is exactly Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I thought of starting with this introduction to just deviate from the classical way of talking about Quran. We have to humble ourselves, we have to be very with khushu', and we have to have that sense of fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, of course, nothing wrong with that. But we need to understand the most important thing about the words of Allah, that they are coming from Allah and not from anyone else. Those are the words that came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala verbatim, as is. No one has ever changed them. No one can change them, and they will stay until the Day of Judgment. You know, subhanAllah, one of the great things that Muslims have and should be always proud of, that wallahi, wherever you go to in this whole world, Despite all the attacks against the Quran, despite all the attempts to change the Quran and misinterpret Quran, there's not a single place in the world that you may go to except that you will find the same exact copy of the Quran. Now, does that mean people have not tried to lie and hide some ayat and switch words and play with the dots and whatnot? Of course they did. And if you open the internet, you will find multiple of these. They call it Quran or Mus'haf, and then you go to, and it's total fool. It's total myth and lie. But subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has saved this Quran so much so that any human, any Muslim can recognize that this Quran, the Quran that or any change or deviation from the Quran, that they will be able to get it. Okay, so how are we going to spend tonight's session? I would like to talk about the etiquettes and manners with Quran, and I want to divide these into three categories. There is the adab or etiquettes that come from the heart. There are the etiquettes that come on the behavior, on our the physical and the seen behavior, and then there are some general etiquettes that come to dealing or interacting with the Quran. So let's start with what etiquettes that we should have while we are reciting Quran, or how should we deal or interact with Quran from the heart sense. The first one is that you always have to bear in mind this is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to give you one example to what it means that the Sahaba feel towards Quran by telling you how the Sahaba feel about meeting with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and who is dearer to their hearts, Allah or Muhammad? Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Actually, they loved Prophet Muhammad because he was the messenger that Allah has chosen to come and be the prophet. So listen to this. There was one time that a tabi'i was meeting with a sahabi. Tabi'i means the one who did not see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam but saw the sahaba. The sahabi had an apple in his hand. He handed this apple to the tabi'i. The tabi'i took that apple and he kissed it from every place. He said, "Tuffahatun massatha yadun massat yada Rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam." That I'm so thrilled to have in my hand an apple that was touched by a person who touched the hand of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And see, subhanallah, that is the thing. That is the type of feeling that people have towards Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So let alone how they feel towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So knowing and understanding that this is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually what really makes them change everything in their behavior when they interact with that. And actually, maybe I'm taking tangent here. Just imagine yourself. You are in Ramadan. You want to finish Quran very quick so that you do khatam, right? And perhaps in the first maybe half of Ramadan you were so busy, so now you only have maybe 15 or less days to finish the Quran. So now you need to rush. So Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. Many people do this. Can you imagine that you are reciting the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the exalted, the one who created heavens and earth, who is on top of his throne subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all this majesty of him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can you imagine that this is the way you read his words subhanahu wa ta'ala? When Allah tells you, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ, that we have made this Quran accessible and easy to access. So are there people who will contemplate on it? When you hear this, are you going to rush it into like this? Well, what is even worse, and I have seen it in almost every place I went to, that some people when they pray, wallahi, you can never imagine that they can recite Surah Al-Fatiha while they are standing. Allahu Akbar. It goes like that. And subhanAllah, I don't know what are they thinking? Like, is this something that they feel that Allah will accept from them? In any way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in need of the salah. I mean, the purpose of Quran is for people to contemplate upon. That's the purpose of Quran. كِتَابٌ أَنزَلْنَاهُ إِلَيْكَ مُبَارَكٌ يَدَّبَّرُ آيَاتِهِ. That this is a book that we have revealed to you. It's a blessed one, so that people will contemplate on. That's the purpose of Quran. For people to contemplate, for people to understand, for people to implement in their lives. And subhanAllah, it became more of a text that people will just recite and will beautify their recitation sometimes, or maybe they will just be, it will just be a checkbox. I did recite it, I did my khatam, alhamdulillah, done. So what did you benefit from that? Nothing. Or, unfortunately, we have this new trend now, where people are, Quran, tajweed, 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 and all what you hear is tajweed. Okay, so what? So what? I mean, people will spend maybe sometimes years to learn what? Al-madd al-lazim al-kalimi al-muthaqqal. So what? Why do I need to learn all these different words? I mean, ask Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. What do we mean by al-madd al-lazim al-kalimi al-muthaqqal? He doesn't know this. But his recitation of Quran was the most perfect recitation after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You see the point? I mean, you spend sometimes, wallahi, months and years to learn all those different rulings, fiqh, tajweed, tajweed, tajweed. I'm not belittling tajweed. I mean, it's very good for us to learn how to recite Quran appropriately. But we don't need to just emphasize on tajweed and forget the main purpose of Quran, which is understanding it, which is making that Quran really in your heart and not just on your tongue. Making that Quran an example that you follow. Make that exemplify Quran in your actions. That's the purpose of Quran. And the very sad news is that most of the people now are just rushing into two things. I want to become hafiz, and I want to have a nice recitation and maybe some ijaza. Well, that is very good. Wallah, we love that, and we should encourage that every time. But this is just your first step. Don't stop there. And don't make your focus only there. Because otherwise we are actually mistreating Quran. If all what we're thinking is tajweed, 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 good recitation, beautiful recitation, hafiz, 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 and then so what is next? That is actually the worst example we can give to what Quran means to us. Because it just became like beautiful voices or nice recitation. So people will say, oh, I'm going to pray Taraweeh at this masjid because Hafiz so-and-so is there. So what? If that would change your life, alhamdulillah. But if it's just a matter of beautiful voice, we're really mistreating Quran. And I want to give you an example. Don't get offended, because I see this everywhere I go to. We have a pattern, we have a habit these days that we bring qaris and we say, let's do a Quran night. We bring those qaris and they will sit in front of the people, and then they will say, oh, and they will, extend their recitation, and I mean, very beautiful voice. I mean, no one argue about this. Nice event because everyone is there and mashallah enjoying it, and it has the title Quran night. What could be better than Quran? But just ask yourself one question. What do people get out of this? Wallahi, nothing. At the time when the Quran is being recited, of course you feel very happy, But then, how does that change your life? Nothing, absolutely nothing. In fact, if you learn what happens behind the scene, you would hate it. Because in many cases, I don't want to generalize, but I want to tell you from my experience. I have been a chairman and president of many masajid. So not only as an imam, I worked on the other side as well. And what I have seen is that most of the time, those people come and they will give you a condition. You have to pay me this much, or otherwise I cannot come. A'udhu billah, a'udhu billah. Are you come? Is this a business? Is Quran business? There's no barakah in it. If the person is making a condition, you either give me this much or I cannot come. Please don't come, akhi. I don't want to hear you or see your face again at all. What is it? Like, astaghfirullah, I mean, when we come to a point where Quran becomes a business, I mean, we then should expect some scandals like what happened in Dallas. Everyone knows about it. What was the name? Yeah, Wissam. Over 10,000 students. 10,000 students in his Quran program. Over 10,000 students. That's business. That is called business. And that's why, subhanAllah, we should really emphasize one thing. The leading in the prayer or listening to the Quran and all that stuff, it's not about just the beautiful voice. Yes, of course, the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam has told us, لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يَتَغَنَّ بِالْقُرْآنِ. And there is another hadith, زَيِّنُوا الْقُرْآنَ بِأَصْوَاتِكُمْ. That he is not among us who does not beautify his voice with the Quran. And he ﷺ also recommended that we beautify our voice when we recite Quran. Of course, this is part of what we believe in. But then the way that people are doing it these days, it just takes the Quran away from what it was sent for. And I want to tell you one thing. I always give this example, and I'm sorry I repeat this, but I want you to, I repeat this example so people understand when they say I am Hanafi, or Hanbali, or Shafi'i, or Maliki, they understand who they follow. Imam Abu Hanifa never in his life took a single dirham for any religious service he did. Never. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal never took a penny for any teaching that he did, neither for Quran nor for anything else. That's why in the Hanafi madhab, it's not permissible to take money for teaching Quran unless it is really the only job you have. But if you are able to avoid it, you should not take money for the Quran. And in other words, if you are devoting your time for the Quran, so much so that you cannot work somewhere else to earn for your living, then it is permissible to take money for teaching Quran. And that's what all the ulama have agreed upon. The problem nowadays is that people are not doing this. What they are doing is, in fact, they are turning recitation of Quran into business. A real business. And by the way, this business, pays a lot. Only if you know what I'm talking about. So, why am I saying this? I just want to distinguish between the superficial etiquette that many people now are showing for the Quran and the real etiquette that the Sahaba and the pious predecessors had. So knowing that this book and these words are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and having that in your mind is the first and most important etiquette that you have. Having your heart attached to the recitation, so that at least you try to get the general meaning of what you recite, is very important. That's why we always say this is the ruling from the ulama, that it is better for a believer to recite like one page or two and understand its meaning than to recite an entire juz' or the entire Quran without understanding. So the most important thing, read it so that you understand it, so that you can implement it in your life, and that it really changes your life afterwards. There is an etiquette that our Sahaba and our pious predecessors had, which is that every time a person of them read Quran, they think or they interpret it as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is revealing this Quran only to them. Don't you hear in Quran Allah saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe? Those Sahaba, those pious predecessors, when they hear this, they would say, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to me. I'm one of the believers. So they take it so seriously. There's a poem that says, وَمِمَّا زَادَنِي شَرَفًا وَتَيْهًا وَكِدْتُ بِأَخْمُصِ أَطَأُ الثُّرِيَّ دُخُولِي تَحْتَ قَوْلِكَ يَا عِبَادِي وَأَنْ صَيَّرْتَ أَحْمَدَ لِي نَبِيًّا. That one of the things that has made me so proud, to the extent that I may fly to the stars, is that I am part of those who you call Ya Ibadi, O my servants, and that you have sent Prophet Muhammad to us. So that was the feeling, that was the thing, that was the etiquette, that they take every ayah in this Quran as if it was personal to them. In many cases, people spend their time on the Quran again, on like making the beautiful voice, or trying to focus so much on the tajweed, which is actually important, only so that you learn how to do it. But then, khalas, you can skip that and just go into the meat of it. And unfortunately, many people may continue on like just. I give you one example. Sometimes you recite, for example, وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَاهَا بِأَيْدٍ وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. I heard one time a muqri or qari, not muqri, who was correcting for people. And mashallah, the one who was reciting was so khasha. Like everyone was, finally someone came to recite Quran in a way that really makes the heart, feel so connected to the Quran. And then that qari, he was not really giving him ijaza, he was just showing that he knows something. He said, your wasama is, you did it 3.5 beats, and it has to be 4. And I was like, what? Astaghfirullah al-azim. If you're doing it for the sake of ijaza, then yes, it is acceptable. But why would you just... people are now pondering about Quran and are so connected to it, and you want to interrupt all of that because you want to say that it was وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَاهَا. It has to be 1/8 of second less. Where did you bring this from? And that's what we see these days, subhanAllah. Okay, another thing is actually, as you recite Quran or as you read Quran, people take this device and they would check their messages. It popped up something there, and that actually tells you, subhanAllah, that this one got higher priority than Quran. I was trying to allude to this in the khutbah of Jummah today. Unfortunately, wallahi, during the khutbah, some people check their messages. That nullifies the prayer. That nullifies all the reward. Rasul sallallahu has said, "Man massal hasa faqad lagha." Whoever touches the stones on the ground, then their Jummah is nullified. وَمَنْ لَغَى فَلَا جُمْعَةَ لَهُ. And if you think about it, what does that mean? When you prioritize your matters, you need to give the highest attention to the top priority, right? And while you are reciting Quran and then a new message pops on your phone, which one should have more priority? Is it to continue with khushu', pondering about Quran, or just checking, someone has sent me a message, let me see what it is. That is what the thing, behind the scene, what goes in your mind. And by the way, I'm sorry, maybe we should talk about this later at another point. Many people these days, when they eat with their family, they put the cell phone or the smartphone in front of them like this, and here's the plate, and they start eating. So the father is there, or the mother is there, and they speak to the person, and he would listen to them, and he would answer them, but his eyes are always on the screen. And see how much disrespectful this is. Now we were talking here about the father and mother, let alone when it goes to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One last thing of those qalb or heart etiquettes is actually that you stay away from ma'asi. I want to give you that with concrete example. One of our pious predecessors have said that since I started to practice Quran, I never ate anything that has a bad smell, including onion and garlic. Is that required? No, it's not required. But guess what the rationale was? He said, because I don't want to recite Quran with a bad smell. And he's always reciting Quran. His day is full of Quran. Can you imagine the type of etiquette that those people have? Similarly, when you have a lot of sins, when in your mind almost every minute comes to yourself like some business transaction that might be haram, or some scene that you have seen on the internet, or you have seen in front of you that is haram. If that comes in your mind at the time when you are reciting Quran, guess how much respect we are giving to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so let's skip now to the physical etiquettes with Quran. First of all, tahara. It is the sunnah that you recite Quran with tahara. Now there are two matters here. Touching the mushaf is one thing, and reciting Quran from your heart is another thing. If someone has what's the word? Janaba. If someone impurity. Okay, well, if you understand impurity, so when someone has, for example, had love with his wife, if at that point in time neither of them can recite Quran, not a single verse before they take the shower, not a single verse. If someone has a wet dream, they cannot recite Quran until they take the full shower. It's important to understand this. Okay, what if someone does not have wudu? All they need is just making wudu. We tell them the sunnah is to have wudu before you recite Quran, but you should not touch the mushaf. There's difference of opinion between scholars on this matter, but the vast majority have said at least it is not recommended that you touch the mushaf. Some of them said it's haram. The vast majority of our scholars said it is makruh. Now, what if the woman is in her period? The woman who is in her period can recite Quran. There's nothing wrong with that, because that's not in her hand. But touching the mushaf, she should avoid it. And just to take it as a fiqh matter, if she wants to recite from a smartphone, like from the device, that's fine, because this is not mushaf. But a mushaf, a typical mushaf, a person who does not have wudu or should not touch that mushaf, as to really get out of the difference of opinion between our scholars. Having a nice fragrance is a sunnah before you recite Quran. reciting it in a clean place is a sunnah. Even dressing up to recite Quran is a sunnah. Having siwak or brushing your teeth before reciting Quran is also a sunnah. Facing the Qibla, to many ulama, it is a sunnah before you recite Quran. Going in the order of the Mus'haf is also a sunnah. And then stopping recitation to answer salam, respond to as-salam, or to say yarhamukallah to the one who sneezed, or to repeat after the adhan is also sunnah. Like you stop reciting until the adhan is over. Of course, recitation at a place where Quran is not being respected should be avoided. Like some people, they go to the marketplace and they will recite at a loud voice. Not maybe here, but maybe in some of the Muslim countries. No, we tell them, you know what? You are causing people to ignore Quran. You're bringing that to them. You should not. And of course, beautifying the voice with Quran is very recommended. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said, زينوا القرآن بأصواتكم أو زينوا أصواتكم بالقرآن. Beautify Quran with your beautiful voices, and in another narration, beautify your voices with Quran. Okay, so we're done with the first, with the adab of the heart, and then the adab that are physical, and now the common adab. Among the very important etiquettes and manners with Quran is that Quran should be a daily routine for you. Reciting Quran should be a daily routine. You just cannot leave Quran for a long time. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Furqan, وَقَالَ الرَّسُولُ يَا رَبِّي إِنَّ قَوْمِي اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا. That in the day of judgment, the Prophet would come and he would complain. He would say, Oh Allah, my people have abandoned Quran. Ya Rabbi, oh my God, inna qawmi, my people, اتخذوا هذا القرآن مهجورا, have abandoned reciting or connecting themselves with Quran. If a person spends like multiple days without reciting Quran, I'm not talking about reciting in Salah, because if you don't recite it in Salah, your Salah is not valid in the first place. I'm talking about reciting it for the purpose of just reciting Quran, like with the intention that Quran is part of my daily schedule. If you abandon Quran for a few days, that is called hajr, and that actually may become a sin. And if it goes for a longer time with intent, with deliberate intention, then it becomes major sin. So people have to have in their schedule some time for the Quran. And I was trying to say it in the khutbah, that if I am willing to watch maybe an episode from TED, for example, or from whatever, that takes, say, 10 minutes of my time, just for the purpose of educating myself. How long should I give to Quran? If I'm willing to give 10 minutes to educate myself about this dunya matters, then how long should I give for Quran? Shouldn't that at least be equal to 10 minutes? If not, maybe 10 times more? And subhanAllah, when we don't do this, it just tells us what in our minds the priority of Quran is. And wallahi, let's face the reality. Quran is not our highest priority. I mean, we always say Quran, we follow Quran, but look at what Quran means to you every single day. That's what, by the way, one of the very beautiful question that I have heard the ulama answering was, how could I know what I mean to Allah? How do I know my position on the sight of Allah? And the answer that I have heard from many scholars was, look at what Quran means to you every day. Just look at that. Very simple. Very simple. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never see you going His side except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will go your side. من أتاني يمشي أتيته هرولا ما تقرب إلي عبدي بشيء أحب إلي مما افترضت عليه. That whoever walks to me, I will rush to him. Whoever wants to get close to me, I'm there. إذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب. When my servants ask you about me, O Muhammad, tell them. No, actually there's no tell them. In this ayah, Allah immediately, directly answered, I am close. Okay, now the second one is actually abandoning Quran in general comes in multiple forms, shapes or forms. One of the shapes of abandoning Quran is that you don't recite it. But there are other forms or shapes of abandoning Quran. Not implementing it in your life. Probably many people recite Quran, but they don't implement it in their life. Abandoning Quran could also be when we do not use Quran to govern and direct us on what to do in this life. The fourth one is when you abandon reflecting upon Quran. And actually, to the extent that you may abandon Quran if you don't use it as a healing method. Didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاء? That we reveal from Quran what is a cure for people. So when you don't use Quran as a cure method or healing method, you are abandoning Quran. And I want to be in the middle here. Sometimes a person who has some psychological issues, some mental issues, would come to the imam, to the sheikh, and they would say, I have distress, I have anxiety, I have depression, I have this and that. Many imams, unfortunately, they tell him, Ya akhi, this means you are so far from Quran. It could be, but there could be some physical issues, some mental disease, right? On the other hand, there's another extreme where the person comes to a person, you must go to the therapist. You need to have a psychiatrist. Well, the middle ground is, you need to try both. Quran should be part of your life, and do not belittle what you may get from the psychiatrist or from the therapist. And that's why, by the way, it's very important for anyone who would give nasiha to people to always think about two parallel parts of healing and curement. Something that comes from the Quran and something that comes from the knowledge of medicine. Okay, now last thing is actually respecting the Mus'haf itself. When we respect the Mus'haf, it means that we do not place it in a wrong place. We don't place it at the place where we stand, where we put our feet. We don't really put something on top of the Mus'haf. We don't place it in a dirty place. This is all an etiquette with the Mus'haf. By the way, what is the difference between Quran and Mus'haf? Quran is the words of Allah. Mus'haf is the book on which the Quran is written. So the words themselves are Quran. But the book, the pages, it's called Mus'haf. So one of the things that I would like to conclude with is that sometimes the respecting Mus'haf or Quran in a way that was not in the Sharia is actually disrespect. Could that happen? Yes, a lot. And it happens almost in many of the people's houses. How does that happen? When you use the Quran for decoration, that is disrespect for the Quran. When you use the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to write some calligraphy that looks like a banana, or looks like an apple, or looks like maybe whatever the fruit or human or someone who is making sujood, and you write something, that is disrespect of Quran. Don't tell me calligraphy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not reveal Quran so that it will be used as calligraphy. If a person wants to remind himself or herself with Quran, and they write, for example, Qul huwallahu ahad in a beautiful handwriting, and they post it in their room to remind themselves, that is totally fine, no problem with that. The problem comes when a person uses that only for making it as art, or only for decorating the place. That is actually disrespect to the Quran, and that is abusing Quran in things that a Quran was not revealed for. Similarly, when people unfortunately keep the Quran in multiple boxes, I'm sure, in Syria this is very common. We place the mushaf, a small mushaf, in a place, and then we wrap it with something beautiful, and then box and another box, and then this gold and silver and whatnot, and we place it in the room. Astaghfirullah. Ya akhi, Quran does not help this way. Quran only helps if you read it, if you implement it in your life. There's no point in doing this. You are disrespecting Quran. Last thing is when people use Quran as a physical protection to them. Many people do it. In Syria, I'm sorry to say about Syria, but just because of my background, in Syria there is mushaf that actually is smaller than your tip here. Actually, smaller than your nail, and they place that mushaf in a gold, in a gold box, and then the woman would wear this. This is common as a way of protection. Of course, none of that is permissible to begin with. It's not permissible. Rasul ﷺ didn't do it. You know what he ﷺ taught us? He said, recite Ayat al-Kursi, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will save you, protect you. Recite Qul huwallahu ahad, Qul a'udhu birabbil falaq, Qul a'udhu birabbin nas, at the daytime and at the nighttime, and Allah will protect you. Those people are not doing this. Instead, they take the paper in which they have shrink the size of the ayat, and they place it here, seeking protection. I have seen it multiple times. People put a very small mushaf in their cars, and I asked them, is that so that you review Quran? He said, no, this is protection for my car. Akhi, you can't do this. You can't do this. This is haram. In no sunnah this has been mentioned. None of Abu Hanifa, nor Malik, nor Shafi'i, nor Ahmad bin Hanbal did this. No one did this. They always tell you what he ﷺ has guided us to use in order to get protected. And that is to recite Quran. The Rasul ﷺ has said that before you go to bed, combine your hands, recite Qul huwallahu, blow with some moisture on them, and recite the last 3 surahs, and then wipe on your face and wipe every place your hands can reach, and do that 3 times, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you. In another hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu talked about when this shaitan came to him, and at the end of the hadith, he said, if you recite Ayat al-Kursi, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you from the shaitan. He went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam acknowledged that. So those protections came from the authentic sunnah. We leave them and we just create our own protection mechanism. Bring that mushaf and place it in my car, or put it in the house so that it will add protection and add barakah. There's no barakah in a place, in a house where Quran is not being recited. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, "Alaykum bi Surah al-Baqarah, فإن تلاوتها بركة ولا تستطيعها البطلة." That when you recite Surah al-Baqarah at your home, Allah will put barakah in your home, and Allah will protect you from magic, will protect you from people who will apply magic on you, the black magic. So that's how protection comes, when you recite, when you ponder, and when you apply that in your life. With that, I want to conclude here. I know I passed, I'm sorry, I didn't pay attention to the time. So let's have maybe 5 minutes and for questions, inshallah. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, if you are reciting something that is needed, like for example, when you go to the bathroom, you say you say the dua when you get to the bathroom, or you want to say Bismillah, that's fine, but not recite Quran. The sunnah, Habibi, is if you have janaba and you want to sleep, is to make wudu at least minimum. By the way, many people don't know this. If you have janaba, the sunnah is to rush to take shower. If you cannot, then at least do wudu. If you are reciting it with your mouth, it's not permissible. That is why it's actually a recommendation from the sunnah that a person should not stay on the state of impurity. Is it permissible to sleep while with janaba? It is permissible, but it's makruh. Yeah. Sisters, any question? Barakallah fikum. Oh, I'm sorry. هل يجوز دفع الزكاة لفتاة تحتاج لعملية تجميل? Okay, let me skip this one because it's not related to the topic. Do you allow only... by the way, this question, I will keep it for Sheikh Salah Sawi, inshallah. Do you allow only audio voice recording of the session? We can refer back to, do you allow only audio? So I think they are doing streaming, right? Video streaming. So there is both video and audio. Can the kids touch Quran without wudu? Yes, they can. They can, but we should teach them that it is better to have wudu before touching the Mus'haf. By the way, if the kid is touching Juz' Amma alone, this does not take the ruling of the Mus'haf. Right? So if you have a Mus'haf that has tafsir in it, you know, sometimes you have the Quran, the Mus'haf that has Quran, and then on the margin, but you have tafsir in Urdu, in Arabic, whatever it is. If the amount of tafsir is way more than the amount of the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that book is no more called Mus'haf. It is a book of tafsir, and it doesn't have the ruling of Mus'haf. Okay, when women are in state of impurity, could they still listen or teach Quran without touching it? So if you're talking about women being in their period time, then yes, they can recite Quran and they can teach Quran. That's fine. If they are in janaba, then no, absolute no. And the difference between the two is that her period is not in her hand. It's just from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But purifying someone's or taking shower after janaba is in our hand. Could the woman read daily Quran, a dua from Quran in the state of impurity? Again, if you mean by impurity that you don't have wudu, or you are in state of the period, or in the state of after birth, then yes, you can. But if you are in the state of janaba, then no, you need to rush and wash yourself, inshallah, before you do it, because it's. And by the way, sometimes women would be in the same in two states at the same time. So to be frank, a woman may have janaba while she is in her period, and if that is the case, then she cannot read Quran. She cannot. She has to take the shower so that she will get out of the janaba state. Of course, she is still in her period. At that time, she can recite Quran. So if any person is in janaba, they cannot recite Quran, whether it is man or woman. Tfaddal. Yes. Yeah, kissing mushaf, is it permissible or not? So Rasul ﷺ did not do it, but there are many pious predecessors who did it. If it is for you out of love, it should be fine. But if you believe that this is something mandatory and it is one of the signs of respect, then no, we should say no. Jazakallah khair. You see the point? So we should not be, I know some people always use the word bid'ah, but we have to define what bid'ah means. Bid'ah means, how do ulama define bid'ah? Imam al-Shatibi rahimahullah ta'ala has said, al-bid'ah عادة في الدين مبتكرة تضاهي الشرعية يقصد بها التقرب إلى الله عز وجل. عادة, it's a pattern, في الدين, in the religion, مبتكرة, new, innovated, was not in the day of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. تضاهي الشرعية, it's different from what we have heard or learned from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Sharia. يقصد بها التقرب إلى الله, the people are doing it because they think it will get them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If that happens, then that becomes bid'ah. But many people, they kiss Quran or the Mus'haf just because it just comes naturally out of love. It's not that they believe that there need to be a kissing of the Mus'haf. If this is the case, then it should be fine, inshallah. During periods for women, can we write Quran? Yes. During period, yes, you can. I am writing Quran with qalam on my notebook. Can I continue writing it on my periods? Yes, you can, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for this. Jazakallah khair. Can sisters touch mushaf if English in it on the... Okay. I can't read that because of my vision, but can they, if the English translation is longer than the Mus'haf, than the Quran itself, the text in Arabic, then that is no more a Mus'haf. Like for example, you know this translation by Yusuf Ali? By Yusuf Ali, it's very thick, this thick. This one is not Mus'haf. But if you go the Noble Quran, which is very small, this is a Mus'haf. It does have a little of English to it, but the Arabic text is more. So it depends. Is Quranic calligraphy, art, haram? Is it impermissible to hang as decor? So what I was saying, and I hope inshallah you take it with clarity. It is absolutely permissible to write a part of the Quran with a beautiful Arabic calligraphy and place it in a place so that you get reminded every time you look at it. It is absolutely fine. The problem is when calligraphy becomes the target or the decor becomes the target. You are typing Quran in a shape of a human, in a shape of an orange, in a shape of apple. And you're just placing it in a place in the room so that it looks so impressive. And people, when they look at it, they just cannot read what is there because all what comes to their mind is that shape of an apple or a shape of a pear or a shape of a banana, right? They will not read what is inside. So the purpose of this is not to remind people of the text there. The purpose is more just for decoration. So, in other words, if the purpose of placing this in a room is to remind you, then it is absolutely halal. If the sole purpose of this is only to decorate and in no way people will benefit from it because actually it's written in a very difficult way, then it is not permissible. If it adds both a good reminder and at the same time in a very beautiful, elegant shape, then it is halal, inshallah. Okay, I hope, did I make it clear? Allah yazzikum al-khair. Right, let's stop here because last question. Yes. Okay, so what is the sunnah of using A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem and Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ. So every single time you read Quran, you need to say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Basmala comes at the beginning of the surah, not in the middle. So I am reciting now Surah Al-Fatiha. I should say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. But let's say I want to recite from the middle of Surah Al-Ahzab, like how I did in Surah Salat Al-Maghrib. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اذكروا الله ذكرا كثيرا. I would not say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, because Bismillah is placed at the beginning of a surah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم is at the beginning of reciting anything from Quran. Now, last thing, just so that I make it clear. Let's say you are in halqa and you are reciting Quran. The first one, like you are taking turns. The first one who would recite should start with أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. And then if that is at the beginning of the surah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And then perhaps you're reciting Surah Al-Kahf, Alhamdulillah alladhi anzala ala abdi al-kitab. And then the next person who would recite after him, if there is no disconnect, if there is no secular conversation between them, that next person does not need to say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. He can immediately continue. Because the first one who said A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, it was for everyone. You see the point? If he likes to say it in his heart or quietly, that's fine. But he should not say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim right after the other one who was just stopping or finishing with his part of the recitation. So this way, if you're just hearing, you would hear the Quran continuously recited from beginning till end, with one A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim at the beginning and with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim at the beginning of every surah. Jazakumullah khair. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Yeah.
This is also good while you are in the salah. Same way.
If you are in the salah, Habibi, at the beginning, at the first rak'ah, you say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. But that's it. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. جزاكم الله كل خير إن شاء الله. بارك الله فيكم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. There is a QR code in front of you. If you could provide your feedback, that would be great. Jazakallah khair.